In this video, I'm going to demonstrate and explain the use of groups, or rather groups of elements, within the XML designer of Visual Studio.net. Use groups whenever you want to make sure that the elements within your XSD have to appear in a certain order. Why would they have to appear in a certain order? Well, it kind of depends on your situation. You might have to interface with a legacy system, maybe a mainframe system that has to process things sequentially, and therefore it needs the data in a certain format. And so you can force that issue on your application in the XSD by the use of a sequence group. There are three different types of groups. The sequence group is the first type of group that we'll look at right now. To create a group, you go to the toolbox and we'll drag and drop a group item onto the design surface. Now in this case what I did was I defined several different elements, and this is a fictitious example of a processing claim piece of software, and the information has to be in a certain order in order for the third-party processing company to actually take advantage of this information. So we'll call this processing claim is our group. We notice that sequence has already been selected. And so in order to get our elements into be grouped sequentially, what we need to do is drag and drop the elements into the group. So the first thing that needs to happen is the organization information will need to go, then the processing rules, and then the customer information, and finally the claim information. Now, when we did this, it sets up kind of a nested hierarchy of a relationship between the group and the different elements within the group. And they are specified in a certain order, and that order must be maintained when we're using sequence type groups. Let's take a look at the XML that was generated as a result of this. Notice that a group was created called processing claim, and that it's restricted by the use of this sequence element within our XSD. And then we have organization, processing rules, customer, and so on. But the key is this restrictive element within our XSD, which tells any application that interprets this XSD that those elements must be in this specific order as they've been defined here. The next type of group is a choice group. And in the choice group, only one of the elements can actually be selected of whatever was put into the group. For example, let's go ahead and add another group, and we'll drag and drop it into the design surface. And in the drop-down box, we'll select this time choice. And we'll set Plan A, Plan B, and Special Offer C. Now, what this means is, within this group, which we'll call customer pricing, the customer can only get one of either of these three plans, either Plan A, Plan B, or Special Offer C, and each of those have different information associated with it. So this is a way of restricting several different choices into one. Again, this is called the choice group. Let's take a look at the XML that's generated as a result of this. Notice that we have a group, and that there is the name of that group is customer pricing, and the element choice is represented underneath of that group item, and then you have Plan A, Plan B, and Special Offer C. So this is good when you want to restrict the choice to one of several different potential options. The final type of element group that we'll look at is the all group, and what this means is that we may not have all the data for all the elements that are within this group. And so some of the elements may exist and some of the elements may not in an acceptable XML document that conforms to this XSD schema. So in order to use the all group, we can drag and drop a group in, And in this case, what we created is a little example of a customer profile in which we may not have all of the information at our disposal for any given customer because we haven't been able to contact that customer enough. Maybe it's early in the process, but we still want to provide information about this customer to one of our partners. And so what we can do is just select all as the type of group, and then, just like we did in the other two examples, begin dragging and dropping our product interest element, our competition element, our decision points, our forecast. And again, if we have that information available, we can place it in there. If not, the XSD says that we don't have to have that information in order for it to be a valid XML document. So let's take a look at the XML that was generated. Again, we have our group element with customer profile. This time we have an element called all. And again, this specifies that if the product interest doesn't exist, then we won't see it in there. If it does exist, then go ahead and put it in there. And the same is true with competition, forecast, and so on. So just to recap, there are three different types of element groups. There is the sequence group that demands that the elements be in a certain order. There is the choice group, which means of all the elements that are available that you can only have one selected or one in the XML document at any given point in time. And then finally the all group type, which means if some of the elements are there and some of them are not, that's still acceptable in order to conform to that XSD. So we hope that you enjoyed this video, learned a little bit more about how element groups work within the XML Designer. Thank you. Have a good day.